Good morning. I hope you're having a wonderful Sabbath. And Sabbath is the topic for the day. The next commandment we're looking at is honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. And so I want you to think about Sabbath. If you're going to have an amazing Sunday, a Sabbath that is just really enjoyable, take a moment to think, what does that taste like? What's it smell like? What's it feel like? Where are you, right? With family, outside, playing sports or something, golfing, fishing, what are you doing? Who are you doing it with, right? Sabbath is something so profoundly important to who we are meant to be, that it stands here at the point, like the first commandments, you shall know I'm Lord your God, no other gods before me, not make any idols, not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, like those first couple. Like those are clearly about who God is. And then after this, we get into the commandments about how do we interact with each other as God's people. And then this is the point of between the two types of commandments. This is the point that connects us. We need a Sabbath because it connects us to who God is, and we need a Sabbath because it is how we then relate to each other as well. All the Ten Commandments are important, but this is really essential to some understanding who we are. This rhythm of seven, every seventh. Because if you think about it, there is no particular reason a week had to have 7 days. A week could have been 10 days or 12 days, or could have been 3 days. We could have had a week of any other length, but we have a 7-day week because it's here. It's rooted in Scripture. And this seventh, every seventh, this rhythm gets baked into the way that the Jewish people lived. Every seventh year, anyone who had been sold into servitude had to be freed. Every seventh year, the land had to have a year to rest, to lay fallow, right? Every 7 sets of 7 years, then the 50th year, so 7 times 7, 49, then the 50th year was the year of Jubilee, in which all debts were forgiven and all land reverted back to the original owners, the original family, so that no family ever had to worry about being permanently enslaved and not being able to Sabbath and be able to have rest. And so Sabbath is baked into the nature of who God's people are, but it has been and continues to this day to be an uphill battle to practice Sabbath well, right? And it kind of shows in that, the explanations around the Sabbath are the longest of any of the 10 Commandments. And we have two, and it happens twice, because we have two tellings of the 10 Commandments. It's worth noticing this. Okay, in Exodus, it's the story of the first half of Exodus is God leading God's people out of slavery. And then in Exodus 20 is the beginning of turning towards, they're going to go towards the promised land. And they're going to learn along the way. And the first thing they learn is the 10 Commandments. That's what they learn. They're given the 10 Commandments. And the commandment about Sabbath is, you shall honor the Lord, you shall honor the Sabbath and keep it holy, for I'm the Lord your God, and I rested on the seventh day. And you were made in the image of God, and so you have to rest every seventh day, because that's how I do things, and you are made in my image, right? So there's a long explanation there about we are made in the image of God. We are built to be people who rest every seventh day. And then you go down the line and you get to the book of Deuteronomy. Deutero, meaning second, pneumos, law. It's the second going over of the law, because the Hebrew people have gone through the desert for 40 years. They've learned, right? And now they're ready to go into the promised land, and they're going to review the law one more time before they go in. And so in Deuteronomy 5, we have them going over the 10 Commandments again. This is at the start of Deuteronomy, and if you're going to start going over the law, you start with the beginning of the law, the 10 Commandments. And this time when they get to this commandment about Sabbath, the explanation has shifted. It's not that the commandment has changed. The commandment is, you shall honor the Sabbath and keep it holy, right? That hasn't changed. Holy, keep it separate. Holy means separate or different, right? So they're still going to keep it separate and different, but their understanding of why has shifted, right? They say, when they tell the 10 Commandments the second time, they say, you shall honor the Sabbath and keep it holy, for you were slaves in Egypt, right? And you're going into they're going to go into the promised land now. And so they make sure to remind themselves, you were slaves in Egypt, and that's what you were freed from. You were brought out of Egypt so you would not be slaves anymore. And now you're going into the promised land. Don't you dare recreate what you left. You left slavery. You don't go into Egypt and recreate the same trends of never being able to stop working. And they struggle with it. We know they struggle with it because we read about it. It's in the prophet Jeremiah as an example of it. The prophet Jeremiah shows up in Jeremiah 17, and God tells him, this is Jeremiah 17, he says, the Lord said to me, Jeremiah, go to the gates of the city where the kings and the merchants and the travelers come and go. The gates where all the commerce was figured out, because you had to pay taxes as you came into the city, pay your tolls, whatever. And so that's where all the business was done. The business was not done in sort of like central market. The business was done at the gate. That's where business deals were executed. That phrase that shows up in the Old Testament, justice in the gate. The gates were where all the business was done. And so the prophet Jeremiah is told, go to the gate, and where all the people are there coming in and going out, doing business, and just talk to all of them, from the king on down. And you tell them, for the sake of your lives, take care that you do not bear a burden on the Sabbath or bring it in by the gates of Jerusalem. Do not carry a burden out of your houses on the Sabbath or do any work, but keep the Sabbath day holy as I commanded your ancestors. Yet they did not listen or incline their ear. They stiffened their necks and would not receive or hear or receive instruction. But if you listen to me, you people today who are in the gate, who are doing business, if you bring no burden by the gates of this city on the Sabbath day, but keep it holy and do no work on it, then there shall enter by the gates of this city kings who will sit on the throne of David, right? And this city shall be inhabited forever. And so if you keep the Sabbath, if you build an economy and a politics and a market that honors the need for people to rest, that does not recreate Egypt in the promised land so that people are enslaved to work every day of their lives, right? If you do that, God will send kings who will establish the kingdom, establish the city, and it will stand, right? But, and this is the ending of this warning, and I can't help but hear this warning in the voice of Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction. If you've ever watched that movie, don't watch it with kids. But this is what I'm hearing, right? He said, but if you do not listen to me, right, to keep the Sabbath day holy and to carry in no burden through the gates of Jerusalem on the Sabbath day, then I will kindle a fire in its gates, and it shall devour the palaces of Jerusalem, and the fire shall not be quenched. Isn't that an amazing warning, right? If you honor the Sabbath, which you're not doing a good job of right now, Jerusalem, even though it's in the Ten Commandments and you've known about it for a long time. If you honor the Sabbath, you will have a city that will stand. It will be a city that is based on a pattern of rest that does not enslave people. But if you do not, this city will fall. So for such a way of life is a burden, and it will just crumble and burn under its own weight. Right? And so we're left with this mandate. It comes through the Old Testament again and again and again. You must keep the Sabbath. You must rest on a regular basis. It's because the Sabbath, it's how we were created in the image of God, and God rests on the seventh day, and so shall we. And we Sabbath because we do not want to recreate Egypt and enslave people to work so that we never stop working. And we got to figure out how to do this. So how do we? First, we got to figure out what we Sabbath from, and then we got to talk about what we're Sabbathing for, because there are two parts to this. First, we got to Sabbath from things, right? We have to Sabbath from work. We have to Sabbath and rest from the idea that if we don't do it, it's not going to get done. If we don't do it the way we want to do it, it won't be done right. And if it's not done right, i.e. the way I want it to be done, then it's not done. It's going to fall apart. We have to Sabbath from the feeling of needing to work all the time because it feels good or it meets our expectations or others' expectations. Sabbath from taking our identity in our work, from our work, and having that be our only source of pride, right? It's a Sabbath from the temptation to burn the candle at both ends because it makes us look good. And if you think this is hard, it is. It is very hard. It is hard today. It was hard back then. Back then, 99% of people reading this originally were farmers. In Deuteronomy, they're about to go into the promised land and be farmers. So they're reviewing this. You must rest on every seventh day. And trying to convince a farmer to take some downtime is not easy, right? Because we work, right? And there are many of us who are in jobs who have a similar temptation to work, right? We not just Sabbath from work, we also Sabbath from worrying and being concerned and obsessing about all the things that we were tempted to worry and obsess and be concerned about, right? Let that wait till tomorrow, till Monday. Sunday is the day for rest. It's a day that is to be holy, thus different from the rest of the days, right? So in a culture of work and worry, Sabbath is our weekly safeguard against the pressure, the temptation, the desire, the expectation to just work, and to never stop. So that's what we Sabbath from. But if that's all we do is we Sabbath from things, then we've missed the point. We have to Sabbath for something. What are we going to fill up the Sabbath with? If it's a holy day, a day that's different, it's not just different because it's not the rest of the week. It's different because it's full of something that we need. What do we need on the Sabbath? We need community. We need something that invigorates us, that's beyond work. We need to worship, right? The commandment to Sabbath is clear. The commandments that build up our understanding of Sabbath is that it is for all people. Right? It is for all the people in our household, in our family, in our lives, even for our livestock Sabbaths as well. It's very clear in the Bible about that, right? So if I'm Sabbathing, if I'm kicking back and reading a book and enjoying a great cup of tea, this is what I want to do on Sabbath, right? And Olivia's downstairs and run ragged and she is tired and exhausted and chasing the kids, then I have failed at Sabbath. Because Sabbath is communal. Sabbath is for us, not just for Andy, right? Which may mean that those without kids may need to step in, be the grandparents, the adoptive aunts and uncles, so that those with kids can have a moment of, right? For the aunts and the grandmas, that might be the best part of their week, right? Because it's going to be a day that is different than the rest of the week, right? So Sabbath is a communal thing. We have to pay attention to all the people around us, that all might be able to rest. And as the Bible puts it, this includes the aliens in the land. Those who are not necessarily from around here, right? We have not Sabbathed well unless our entire community can Sabbath, which includes those who are not in church. Just because people do or do not follow Jesus, if they don't follow Jesus, that doesn't reduce their need to Sabbath. That just means they don't fully understand why they need to Sabbath, but that doesn't change they need it, right? So Sabbath, it's a communal thing. It's a Sabbath. Sabbath is also this time for a life that is beyond work, right? We are so tempted to find our identity in our jobs. When we introduce ourselves to each other, like, who are you? My name is Andy, and like, what's your job, right? We go to career quickly to identify ourselves. Who we are is what we do as our job, and that's not enough. Sabbath is a day to be about something more than our job, to be for the things that we are passionate about, to be for things that are different than our jobs, to be about our hobbies, our joys, right? For me, one of the greatest joys I get is around cooking. And so for me, to cook on the Sabbath is great, and it has nothing to do with my job the rest of the week, but to be able to cook for people is awesome, and I love it, right? And so a Sabbath is a day for hobbies and extracurricular, to pursue pastimes, to share time with friends, right? To go hike, to play golf, to go to the pool with people, to do things together. So Sabbath is for community, it's for life beyond work, and it is also, it's for worship. Worship is at the center of Sabbath, for it is the sort of the jewel of Sabbath. It's the telling of the stories of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that makes Sabbath possible. It helps us understand why it matters so much. This way of life, this way of looking at Sabbath and saying we need to take this day, it looks at our culture and it evaluates it and it finds it lacking. Sabbath looks at our economics, which requires some people to work 2 jobs, often working a second job on the Sabbath, and it finds our economics wanting. Right? What would it look like for everyone to take 1 day off a week to really Sabbath and not work? What would have to change? Right? It's probably too big of a question for any one particular sermon, but I do think it's worth thinking about. Like how do people who we interact with on Sunday, like how do other people, like you go to a gas station, you go to a grocery store, you go out to eat, they're working on Sabbath so that we can go grocery shopping, right? And maybe our responses to that are small, is to be amazingly gracious to people who are working on Sabbath. Or, you go out to eat after hearing this, after the sermon. Can we become the most amazing tippers at restaurants? Like, you have to work on Sabbath and you're working so I can have a meal on Sunday after church. Can Christians, can we just become amazing at tipping people and being thankful, knowing that they are not having a Sabbath that day? Right? Sabbath also looks at our approach to retirement and finds it lacking as well. For the unspoken assumption seems to be that we'll work, and then we'll retire, and then we'll start sort of living our lives and enjoying things. And then what happens when people do retire, if they've never if they haven't Sabbathed well over the years, is they don't know how to do anything but work, so they just keep on working. Right? If we don't take time to Sabbath on a weekly basis, by the time we retire, the damage has been done to a person and to the person's family, right? And so we developed an unhealthy relationship to work and turned it into a grind, right? And Sabbath helps us find a rhythm so that it doesn't grind down on us. And as more and more people are not connected to the land, like there are less and less farmers because farmers are doing more and more land, like we lose track of the rhythms of work and rest and work and rest. And I'm very aware of this myself because like this is I've just finished my first full week with a new church over at Monroe City, and I've worked 5 14-hour days, and you know what I'm doing this afternoon on Sunday? Nothing. And I think I'm taking Monday off too, because I need to pay attention to my family. I need to Sabbath. I can tell, I can feel it, that I need to pay attention to people and not just work for 5. It wasn't healthy, right? I needed to do it, but I need to find that rhythm where I take some Sabbath time, right? I can point towards Sabbath, the Sabbath as something that we're created to do. I can point out how serious God is about this, right? I can acknowledge that I struggle to Sabbath well as well, right? This is a challenge for me. And what are you going to do about Sabbath is a question that you need to figure out yourself. And so if you're watching this alone, I have a question or two for you. If you're watching this with someone, just take a moment and ponder these questions, right? What do you need to Sabbath from? What are the things that trigger your work, right? The sense of work, right? What do you need to Sabbath from? And what do you need to Sabbath for? What are the things you need to do on Sabbath that are joyous and wonderful and communal, right? And who do you need to Sabbath with, right? Let me give you the good news to cap this off. There is a rest that remains. We Sabbath, we rest, taking that day and making it a day of rest and community and enjoyment and joy and worship and music and beauty, right? We do this, and we read in the book of Hebrews that this is a foretaste of the rest that is to come. The promise, let me just read this to you and hear this promise as we close this sermon, right? Hebrews 4. So then, a Sabbath rest still remains for the people of God. For those who enter God's rest also cease from their labors as God did from his. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest, so that no one may fall through such disobedience as theirs. Indeed, the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing until it divides soul from spirit, joint from marrow. It is able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And before him no creature is hidden, but all are naked and laid bare to the eyes of the one to whom we must render an account. Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast to our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but we have one who in every respect has been tested as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore approach the throne of God with boldness, so that we might receive mercy and find grace to find help, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. My friends, I hope you Sabbath well this day and every Sunday.